is 1 minute early. It's actually 6:59. Roll call. I have been advised that Nate Hewlin and Sarah Homestead will not be here tonight, and Andrew is going to be about 10 minutes late. Adoption of agenda. Are there changes? Removal? Anything? Got changes?
Yeah, do you want to hear a report? Do you want to hear a report about the utility district? I don't have to give it now. There's no rush, but I'm just curious.
Is there anything new that we should be aware of?
Not really on the utility district. Okay, I have something new, but I'll save it for announcements.
Okay. All right. Nothing else? All right, let's adopt the agenda as by acclamation. Announcements.
Well, I might as well mention. For a good long time, it has been posited that we could perhaps use the RV park as an equestrian facility and maybe get some benefit from the county for letting them use our facilities. And it was very explicitly stated at the Lake Whatcom Policy Group by the head of the county park department that the likelihood of having any equestrian usage, much less facility usage, on this side of the lake for the next several years is extremely unlikely. So I would suggest we just drop that particular option. It's not going to be available to us for quite some time, if ever.
That is one thought. Okay. Any other announcements? What's coming up?
Yep. I want to give a shout out to Bob Cooper and all the volunteers for July 4th. He has done a great job getting everything organized, and since this is my first July 4th here, I am looking forward to it.
Okay. Would you like to tell us what's happening on July 4th?
We have a climbing wall. What else we have? Food. Bob is doing all the food. There'll be hamburgers and hot dogs. That starts at 3 o'clock, and then the climbing wall. We will have our staff, both maintenance and security, will be directing traffic, and fireworks will go. They have an area marked out by the swimming area where fireworks will be able to be shot off.
And the food, the hamburgers and so forth are for members?
Yes.
And there'll be somebody there checking?
We will have staff there checking, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And it's free. It's free to the residents.
Free members?
Yes.
Mike?
I'd like to present Jacob and Brian to tell you about the wonderful golf tournament that these two gentlemen presented to the state of Washington, to Sutton Valley, and to Whatcom County.
That was in the last 3 days, right?
Yes.
Why don't you use a microphone so we can hear? Thank you.
So as Mike alluded to, we just finished hosting the Washington State Women's Amateur. It was a 3-day tournament. It's a pretty prestigious, high-level amateur event. Had 83 participants over 4 divisions. There was the state amateur, which was the most competitive, the best players, college players, high-level junior players, and then we had the mid-am, which is 25 and older, the senior event, which was 50 and older, and then the super senior, which is 65 and older. So the best women players in the state, and some from out of state, over all those four categories. And it's a pretty cool event, and it was really neat that we were asked to host it years ago, before Jacob and I arrived, especially with all the work Jacob's done, we wouldn't have been probably considered to host an event of this stature. So it speaks a lot to us that we were able to host it. Jacob and his staff did an amazing job getting the course in the condition that it needed to be in to host an event like this. Very many of our members, Mike D'Angelo being one of our golf members, volunteered throughout the week. So probably 12 different members, maybe as many as 14 members volunteering to help out, which was really cool. The association, the Washington State Golf Association was very pleased. The response from the players was almost exclusively positive about the golf course. So Jacob, again, did a wonderful job with his staff getting the course in the condition it needed to be. So really successful event. The top 2 players were Washington Husky golfers. the gal that won it, Ms. Sasaki, I can't remember her.
Reno first.
Reno Sasaki, yeah. Played wonderful. There's a gal, you know, after the first day, there was an 8th grader who was leading. She shot.
Not
she
even in
made-
8th grade yet.
She's not even in 8th grade. She just finished 7th grade. It'll be 8th grade in September. She made 8 birdies in the first round, shot 69, was beating all the college kids. It was stunning. It's stunning to watch her play. So really fun for all of us, especially those of us that have been here for a long time, to see us kind of back in the mix for hosting events of that nature. So it was really successful, and expected to be kind of a harbinger of things to come for us.
Thank you. Yeah, great job.
I would just like to add the number of people, parents mostly, that were following their children around, couldn't say enough about Sudden Valley, couldn't say enough about the beauty of the area, and they had no idea that a place like this existed, and they can't wait for this tournament to come back to Sudden Valley.
They don't have to wait, they can play here anytime. Eric?
Sorry, Brian, to keep you up here.
No problem.
But,
I
I'm
love this.
going to toss you a tough question.
Hey, mine, could you use a mic?
Sure. So I haven't competed in golf tournaments, but I've competed in a variety of tournaments for charities and otherwise. But I had a lot of fun as a competitor. But how do tournaments like this benefit Sudden Valley?
Yeah, so a couple of ways, both directly and indirectly. For this event, we actually do get some direct financial compensation. So it'll be about a $4,000 revenue for this, just for this week. But really, the power of this event goes way beyond that. To touch a little bit on what Mike said, the people that were here for the first time getting exposed to the place. It's why it's critical that we present the course in really good condition. So that's why there's a lot of pressure on Jake and his team to make sure that the course is in top condition for these events, because word of mouth is so powerful in golf. And it's important, especially a place like us with limited advertising budgets, to be able to host events like this and create these positive impressions in the golf community. Very powerful in that respect. And then because of this, the association has developed a really cool program. They have a winter series of programs similar to our winter series, and they're going to give us one of those events as well, in appreciation for us hosting the U.S. Senior Open qualifying and the WSGA Women's State Amateur. They are going to allow us to host and reap the financial benefits of a winter series event that will take place probably between January and March of 2020. So some very direct financial benefits and some very powerful indirect benefits as well.
Thanks.
Any more announcements? Okay, moving on to property owner comments. Is there anybody who would like to come up and make a comment for us? Not seeing anybody? Or board member comments? Anything? Okay, moving forward, approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor? It is unanimous. The consent agenda has been approved. General manager's report. We got a handout here.
Yes, the handout is there. Good evening, everyone. Just to touch on a few things from this month. As many of you have known, that we have, both myself and our team has presented the Finance Committee with the 2020 budget. You have that all in front of you. That is what the Finance Committee has sent up to the board for your guys' review, and we will sit down and go over it July 10th and 11th. So you have a couple weeks to go through that and tear it apart. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Jennifer, myself, or Carol, and we will address those for you. Some of you have seen some work being done. WRS is in here starting the pothole repair. There are some areas that are milled out that still have some bumps on them as they have the sign. They couldn't work today, so they'll be back tomorrow.
That will continue for the next couple of weeks, right?
That will continue tomorrow and next week, and then Intermountain Slurry will be in the following week to start the micro sealing. So we are going to be in front of them as far as we can to get the potholes repaired. I did do a walkthrough with Intermountain, so I have an idea finally have an idea what their process is going to look like. I don't know how it's going to come out, but I did walk with them in preparation for the pothole repair, so I would have an idea what they were requiring from us to get it done. So that was a rather interesting walkthrough, so we're ready to go with that. ACC, we've had 51 requests processed this month. We've also had 7 hazardous tree requests, and we have stuff presented to the county for permitting right now. Accounting, we're at 96.5% collections. Again, Jennifer and everybody and myself, we did present to the Finance Committee. All the Finance Committee stuff is online. I would encourage everyone to take a little bit of time and look at it. It was 6.5 hours. I think it's 6.5 hours very well spent. I think everybody should be looking at it to get an idea of what the management team is trying to present and try to do for the community.
Question? This is just for my education.
Okay.
Page 2 of the report,
Yes?
that table, at the very end, it jumps from April to June.
I'll have to ask Jennifer why that.
Yeah, it's just kind of curious.
Yeah, I will ask her that. Good catch. I'll ask her. She's on vacation, so I'll get with her next week and I'll get you the answer. One of the things that Finance had brought up during our meetings was ways to save monies for the community. One of the things that HR and admin is doing, we contracted with our copier. We'll save $5,000 over the next 3 years for the copier. So that is a savings that we will see going forward. We also have 2 new N&E members, and the first committee meeting will be July 1st. That will be their training, getting ready to go for the elections, because I do believe July 8th, everything will start with that when that's the first business day after July 4th. That's when nominations we start accepting. We also have done 25 new member packets in the month of June. And right now we have 66 employees. Most of those are seasonal. It is that time of year when we start lifeguards and golf course and golf maintenance. Maple Leaf Park renovation, that is moving along. They have done quite a bit of work to that. They've upgraded some of the fall surfaces, landscape fabric, old playground borders. They're picking one of the parks off slowly, and they will address the ones that they have deemed needed to be worked on. Also in recreation, all the new equipment is in. I don't know if anybody has seen it or used it, but we do have all the recreation or the cardio equipment and stuff that we had voted on that is in place right now. Total number of pool visitors in the main pool since the opening, we've had 2,060 people in the main pool and 441 in the quiet pool. So the pools are getting quite a bit of use. We've sold just a shade over $1,900 in revenue from the public access to the pool facilities. Golf is 12% higher than last year. A lot of that is the course conditions are impeccable. Mother Nature has helped. It has not rained, but rounds of golf themselves are also up 16% and 21%. Daily green fees and rounds played, so we are busier, so that is a good thing for revenue. Also, the junior golf camp starts July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and their picnic is July 4th. I actually will be lending a hand to Brian and his team. I will be doing some teaching with them, so it'll be interesting. I haven't taught junior golf in about 5 years, so it'll be fun.
Cool. Hey, Joe, another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
A significant question was raised that maybe you or Brian could cover. Golf income was questioned as whether it adequately covers true golf expenses. And the real problem mentioned was that somehow groundskeeping was not included with the rest of golf expenses. Could you explain or clarify what that situation is? Whoever's here.
I can touch that. You have two sides of that coin. You have the income side and you have the expense side. Basically what it is Brian makes the money and Jacob spends it. That is the bottom line. And again, most facilities do separate those. So we're not any different because they are two separate departments under one umbrella.
Well, the golf expenses then does include grounds.
Yes.
It's not separate and,
Golf enterprise.
could you? Yeah, for the tape anyway, yeah.
The golf enterprise always includes the golf expense, golf management expense, and revenue. They come on my side. The turf care expenses come under Jacob's management. So those are two separate departments. But whenever we talk about the golf enterprise, and so we talk about the golf deficit or golf profit, it always includes the golf management expenses and revenue less the expenses from turf care. Always has. Never been any effort to have those things not be included. But the reason why they show up separately, they are two separate departments managed by two separate individuals.
Super, thanks.
Which is very common across every country club or homeowners association at a golf course that I've ever seen, and it's pretty typical. So
I guess
it's all one pot.
I guess it's just not clear to some folks, so it's good. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Also, stay with turf and golf. The pump, the pressure pump has been replaced that we voted on in the last board meeting. So that is in and is working. As you can see, there is quite a bit of work that has been done on veg control. The picture you have a before and after on page 12, which shows a very, very good picture of what we're trying to do and clean the trees out and make it look a lot better. And it also helps in snow removal whenever it snows here. One of the glaring things, our maintenance backlog as of June 18th. We are 506.5 hours behind on corrective repair maintenance. We are 2,130 hours of routine preventative maintenance. And we have one person 40 hours a week available to catch all that up. So that is a very glaring problem that we are facing across the community. Security, we did have this traffic calming project. I know some of you saw it out there. These are all the stats that we have picked up from that piece of equipment. As you can see, the volume by hour is 1,700 is the most, which is 5 o'clock at night.
Just to clarify, that's a volume in a certain location.
Certain location, correct, wherever the machine was sitting at that time.
And this device was given to us for a 30-day trial, and it was deployed in
Numerous spots throughout the community.
Numerous spots just so that they could see its effectiveness and see what it did. And what was interesting to me was that it actually has data about its effectiveness in reducing speeds, which was, I didn't know that it could do that, but
It was a nice machine. I wish we could have had it for another 30 days, especially over this weekend. Would be great to have it.
now I notice here that it's unlikely this type of device will be purchased due to the cost, is what's stated in this report, but I don't know what the cost is.
I will get that. I believe, don't hold me to it, I believe Norm said it was $6,100. But I will get the board an actual price for that.
Ouch.
have we, in this whole traffic calming last year and a half or so of data gathering, have we received any feedback from any vendors that would be able to help us interpret data gathered and,
Not at this time, no.
okay.
Not at this time. And that is all I have. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to make a comment. I know there have been a lot of questions about what we're doing to save money here and there, and I think we've mentioned it before, but I want to kind of highlight it again, is we have changed our ADP vendor contractor and have saved a considerable amount of money, I understand that way, as well as gotten significantly more services from them.
Yeah, we have it's
That's the person who
Yeah,
processes our
the
payroll
Yeah,
and
ADP is
handles-
a payroll company. We
Yeah.
use.
Can you speak to that, Lisa?
I can. We had ADP, we inherited it when we got.
Yeah, sorry, I used the wrong term. It was ADP,
It was
it's now
ADP,
new,
and
somebody
it
new.
was a system that we inherited. We went to HKP, iSolved, and which includes, it's less of an expense, but they include an HRIS system. They include COBRA and FSA management, and it's a much richer product, and it's easier to use. ADP had two separate products that didn't always talk to each other. It was a constant headache.
Which also saves staff a lot of time and effort, so.
Yes, and headaches with
So I think,
calculations and so forth. It's been an excellent move for us.
so I think it's important for us to know that this is something that the staff is doing on all occasions, is always looking at better vendors, negotiating better prices, better service, and so forth.
Even
to-
the smallest thing down to copy machines.
And a small thing such as a copy machine.
The fact that we can
correct.
save $5,000 over 3 years is a pretty big deal.
Any other questions? Yes.
It was brought to my attention that on page 13, you've got sand structure, it should be sprung structure.
Oh, okay.
Top page 13.
Is it top of page 13? Yeah. Second bullet. Just so people know what it is, it's the actual facility or structure we're going to put up for storing our snow equipment and supplies.
All right.
I guess it's sand in the context of the salted sand goes inside it.
Okay,
Good analogy, Larry.
good save.
No other questions, Madam President.
All right. Any more questions? Moving on to treasurer's report and voting.
So the treasurer's report basically is from the results of our meeting last week, and Jacob did a great job of presenting the first request for funds last week, and I'd like him to do so again, if he would be so kind. By the way, this was voted on and approved or recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee. And Jacob, just before you start, this is a two-part piece that we're approving 2 years in a row because it's done in 2 stages. And it is part of our SURF plan for this year and next, and is a priority for us. So again, approved by the Finance Committee.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jacob.
so let me go over a little history. My name is Jacob Close. I'm a golf course superintendent. Back in 1994, the golf course experienced its most recent irrigation system install. The original system was installed in 1969, 1970, right when the course was opened. And went about 25-year lifespan. In 1994 was then replaced, and true to form, that type of asset lasts about 25 years. The upside, when our 1994 system was put in, they replaced everything from the heads and the irrigation piping, the control wire, all the components. And our PVC pipe is in good shape, and we've maintained it well. And so at this time, we won't have to look at the scope of an entirely new irrigation system. So the reserve study over a number of years has recommended kind of a midlife upgrade, replacement of the failed components at a midlife of the piping, which is about 50 years. So our goal with this renovation is to achieve another 25 years of lifespan, which is pretty much the industry standard. We're getting our full lifespan out of these systems from 1970 to 1969, 1970 to 1994, and then now, about 26 years later, replacing all our heads and control system, and rebuilding of our irrigation pumps. Like I said, it's been in the reserve study for several years. It will be split between 2 years due to just trying to manage the cash flow of the project. For the record, in 1994, we spent just under $1 million to replace all the componentry. Obviously, the scope of that project was larger than this scope will be, but this is pretty standard switch out of components. The irrigation heads are nothing special for Sudden Valley. These are standard components used in landscape irrigation, golf irrigation, sports fields. So the reason the cost is quite high, but in line with the reserve study, is that there's just a lot of components. You're looking at about 1,142 heads, 23 controllers, and a control computer, the weather station that ties into that, and then the pump work. The upside to working on this as a package all in 1 year this year is we will achieve a savings of 3 to 5% in the component cost that usually happens usually around the first of the year. Generally there's a cost increase to many of these components traditionally, so right off the bat we'll save 3 to 5% versus looking at the second half of the project next year. So that's an immediate savings. We went out for bids on this project like I always do. 3 component suppliers were asked for bids, and we got 3 bids on installation as well. This will be installed for us. 2 different vendors will be doing all the work for us, with coordination of our staff on the property while they're here and supervising them. Excuse me, I just lost my train. We went out for 3 bids on the components and the install. The only place where we did not have 3 bids was on the pump work. We have worked for over a decade with probably the best golf irrigation pump company, and that's who is honestly the best bid. There's not a lot of qualified contractors there, and from cities and golf courses all up and down I-5 in Washington, this is the preferred vendor. And he has knowledge of our systems, which are they're not standard from course to course, they are somewhat custom designed to your property. So that is recommended we stay with that, keep that knowledge, because those can be very expensive components. There's 3 options listed in your packet that the Finance Committee looked at. Moving from the left to the right. There's the 3 brands are Toro, Rainbird, and Hunter. Toro
Page
being
125.
Yes, sorry. And you can look at an itemized list there of what the total project cost comes from, whether it be the irrigation heads and control system, the different type of components, the pump station work. Also included in this bid is a separate CRRF Component, which was the pond aeration fountains, which had failed and were on the list also for this year. So those have been combined. This is 2 CRRF items that the staff and finance committee went over this year, combined into one. One point of information, that you can see the contingency for the Toro is 5%, and in the following 2 brands it's 20%. We currently have Toro components, and they communicate on a wire path signal, and by going with that brand we can utilize that cable. If you switch brands, you have to switch the cabling, which not only costs you money for the install, but the major danger that would affect contingency is those contracts are written in such a way that any cost overruns due to bedrock, tree roots, anything buried under the ground, it becomes a change order, and so you have to account for that in your contingency. So that's why those costs are much higher for those projects in the contingency line item. And then the communication wire install is listed for each one. But I'm recommending going with the Toro, the existing communication wire. It's been tested by our staff and the vendor to continue to be robust and reliable. And there would be, quite a bit of work involved, some permitting with putting in all new cable, trenching all new cable. This would be completed in second half of this year, and then probably first quarter of 2020, so they'll be ready to go for the season next year. Again, the efficiencies of not having to maintain components that are no longer supported by the manufacturer. Our software is no longer supported, and so we're kind of on our own there with components and software. So that's a brief overview. If there's any questions, Larry?
Yeah, one. I attended the Finance Committee meeting, and there was an interesting discussion that I think would be useful for folks to hear, that related to the interaction between the existing piping system and how much life that was left in the piping system, the interaction with that and the pump that's being repaired. So could you explain that relationship?
Yes, so we have PVC piping on the golf course. What stresses that and basically makes its life cycle shorten is surges in pressure. Water hammer is the term that describes that. As pipe is weakened by those surges, its lifespan is reduced. Those surges come from your pump stations, and the reason the work here is being done now is so that we continue to take care of that asset that's in the ground for another 25 years and don't prematurely wear the asset out. And the pumps are an integral part of keeping that very static, controlled system working. Point of interest, or point of information, other courses in Whatcom County are doing irrigation system right now, and the scope, it wouldn't quite be the same, but they're $2+ million. So it's definitely something we want to take care of so that we don't have to look at that. And we have taken care of that as a property in the last 25 years. So we're going to get that full life, about 50-year lifespan out of the PVC piping, which is an industry, that falls within the industry guidelines. But yeah, Larry, the pumps are definitely a crucial part of keeping that system working in a manner that keeps its lifespan maximized.
The new control system and heads, is it more granular in its ability to target areas of need? And so, for example, I'm imagining right now it's a zone type system where it might flood a zone and underwater another area, whereas this new system might be more targeted?
Yeah, I went over a bit in the Finance Committee meeting. So with advances in technology, our controllers can do a max of 32 stations. Now we have the ability to go up to 64. So each head is wired individually to the controller, and now instead of having in some cases 2 or 3 heads to a station, getting one run time. You can separate those and they all have their own run time, 1,100 heads working individually. You can therefore use less water, less electricity to pump the water, because you're only giving that 60-foot spacing the exact amount it needs. So that's one increase in efficiency there from that will be gained in this. The heads are more efficient. They're lower maintenance. The heads are top serviceable now versus requiring to dig up the head. So the grounds crew worker to do any repairs, normal maintenance, can just come over and unscrew from the top and maintain them. So over the long run, we're looking at a reduction in labor costs as the system ages, whereas now we have to dig a hole each time, which then can affect the player experience for people coming out to play and our members. So we're looking long term to try and reduce our maintenance inputs that way, especially as labor goes up.
Thanks.
Obviously, it's under warranty for a period of time where we don't have to worry about that, which is something we don't have now, but beyond the warranty period.
Madam President Carroll?
I just thought since Jacob had completed his presentation, I would make a motion and then we can discuss it further. So I'd like to move that the board approve the allocation of $500,362.10 for the renovation of the golf course irrigation system for the items on the 2019 and 2020 SURF
Second.
or reserve study.
Second, Madam President, there are still 2 questions. Two board members that have questions, Andrew being one.
So just point of clarification for myself.
And Andrew?
Thanks. Point of clarification for myself is it looks like what we're approving is a phased project, and so part of what we're approving includes phase 2, which won't happen until 2020. And this is in line with our 2019 budget, Joe?
Yeah, it's going to be a little over due to, I believe in surf, it's going to be what, 50 over, Jake? I think.
Over the projections.
Over the
this year?
projection from the surf, yes.
Yeah, it depends. It definitely is over, especially with the contingency. Yeah, I think it's about 25. I think we're forced. Don't quote me. I would have to get you the exact number from the surf estimate for this year and next year, but yeah, it's in the realm, I believe, about 25,000, and that comes from increased scope in the pump system. When we had those looked at for the price or for our bids here, we found a little bit more work that needed to be done on the upper pump station. So that increase was almost all in the pump station work, which the reserve study would have had a hard time. They didn't dial down into that much detail.
I do believe the 229 which will be this year is under what was budgeted for this year, and the 271 is going to be over for next year. So we'll just have to budget for that in 2020.
And if it's not budgeted, I guess, then in the proposed 2020 budget, how will that impact you? What's your contingency?
As far as not doing it, when we start the project, I don't think there's any turning back at this point. I mean, we're going to be committed to it for 2 years to install this.
Point of information, we have a couple of board members with additional numbers.
Yes, Jennifer was quite clear at our meeting last week. We have the funds to do it, and what we're doing now is obligating those funds now. And though they were over in SURF for next year, this is an A priority and needs to be done, and there is going to be sufficient funds because of some things that we have already established that are going to be under what we projected for this coming year. So this will be one of the top ones that we're going to go forward on. It's an A priority for both this year and for next year. And I checked with Jennifer to make sure we were not going to have any overages to the point that we were going to be jeopardizing any other projects. So we're good. We're under on several other projects that will allow us the wiggle room, so to speak, to fully fund this one.
Madam President Paula?
Just to clarify that, I think you said it, but it is already accounted for in the draft, in the 2020 draft budget. So that's already accounted for then.
Yes, Madam President.
A couple of questions pertaining to the timing of this. First of all, there's the plan to do this over the winter, or over the fall and into the winter. Is there going to be any issues with the weather during that time period?
No, the contractor selected for installation deals specifically with northwest conditions, so they see no challenges to completing on time.
Okay, like in a hard freeze like that?
Yeah, the work for this year will be all literally bolt on, and then the work in 2020 first quarter, we've allowed enough time there that
Work around weather?
yeah, we will work around the weather, and
Okay.
there's always going to be some snow and things of that nature.
The other question was, does this have any impact with the stormwater dirt moving season?
It does not. Is under, at all times will be under their limits for any digging. It's extremely minor. That would be different if we had looked at the other two options. That would have restricted us into dirt work season,
Okay,
but not with the one I'm recommending, the first call. Tor.
anything else?
No, ma'am.
Call the question.
All right, with no objection, all those in favor? And the motion is unanimous, if that passes. Thank you. Moving down to UDR requests.
This particular item was brought to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee declined to deal with it inasmuch as this was originally a decision by the board, and they felt that the board should be the one. This is almost really more like a strategy. Is this something that the board wants to do? So this is a brand-new request. There was no real discussion regarding this particular request. So I'm going to let Joe speak to it. We also recommended some feedback from Maddie, so hopefully he can bring that to us as well.
Should we have a motion before discussion?
We could have a motion. I'm happy to do that. Let me get it in front of me so that
Page 139.
thank you. Oh, I had it in front of me. All right. The board recommends approval of an amount not to exceed $14,400 from the UDR fund to continue with the arrangement of Ken's Cozy Kitchen, providing support to the Recreation Department from January 1, 2019 to December 31, 2019.
Second.
Discussion.
For the reasons stated in the motion, that it clarifies the original board motion and mentions numbers and carries it out through the end of the fiscal year, I don't have any problem with this. However, the question is, what about the following year? When is this going to be reevaluated?
That I don't know. As I say, this was not really discussed. I think it would be better if Joe could speak to this, and I'm hopeful that Maddie can give us some feedback as to the value of what's happening, what would be the alternative solution, what would be impacted by our not doing this. And as I say, this was not discussed at the finance meeting.
Right now, there is not enough adequate staff down there if Maddie was to take it over. So if we continue the way we're going, it's fine. If we are looking to take it over ourselves, then there's going to have to be a full plan put together with staff and costs. Staff.
If I may, excuse me, if I may, even though the motion recommended the 14,400, basically the motion that we had back in January takes care of half of that. And so now we're just picking up somewhat of a new motion to do the 7,200 from here until the end of December.
Yes, the way Jennifer actually wrote this motion, I appreciate that. When I was reading it, I was thinking the same thing. So what we're doing is adding an additional 7,200 to make it a full 14,400 for the entire year. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's only for the remainder, July 1st through December 31st.
Right.
And then if I might jump onto Larry's question, I suspect that after December 31, when the new board is seated, that this will come up for a discussion, and it'll be up to that panel, and not to us whatsoever.
Correct. That would be, it would be up to the new board to make a determination if we stay the course with this or we look at other options at that point in time, yes.
Thank you.
That raises another question. Given that there is a turnover at the beginning of November and the fiscal year ends at the end of December, should the new board want to make a decision to change, will it have sufficient information regarding the cost of a new plan with staffing, et cetera, versus the impact, probably fiscal as well as social, of not having anything at all? Will the new board be able to get that, or does staff need to start that process now, or at least sometime before the election?
There has been some work already done on it to look at possibly changing the operation down there. We have started that.
Thank you.
Again, the motion, I apologize for interjecting, but again, the motion is to take it to December 31. So the board that is seated after the AGM would have to withdraw that, at least a part of that motion monetarily, in order to put in, to give their input as to what they would like to do as far as Ken's is concerned. Otherwise, it stays until December 31.
Just a point of information on that. Actually, the new board wouldn't have to do anything. New boards can change, but they can continue a prior decision or action. So unless they decide to change it, they would not need to do anything. If they decided to change it, of course, in the middle of the year, or I should say towards the end of the year before December, yes, then of course they would have to make a change.
If I can make a comment about that, it is common to write a contract through an entire year, and we are obligated to fulfill the contract that we have voted on, and I personally don't see this as any different from any other contract, unless you're telling me different.
I got this inherited to me. I don't know why it was only done for 6 months to start with. It should have been done for a full year.
Yeah, all right.
You're correct. It should have been done for a full year.
Again, if I may, I believe the reason for the 6 months was because it was a trial run.
Yes.
To make sure that it was still needed after 6 months.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. Are there any further questions, comments?
Call the question.
Okay, with no objection, all those in favor? And the vote is unanimous. Okay, moving down to the draft budget.
What everyone has in front of you is the recommendation from the Finance Committee to the board with the changes that were made at the finance level. So this will be what all the managers will be reporting and presenting to you, the board, July 10th and July 11th.
So we're going to talk about the process at this point about going forward?
Yep, the process going forward is it will be done the same way as we did with the Finance Committee. It will be full board, we'll have it up on the screen. One of the things that we will do a little different, we're going to try to make it real time, so if there's any additions or subtractions that the board wants, we can move that number up and down. So when we come out of July 11th, we'll have a solid number of what the dues will be, because at that point we will have a live real time, and then we'll have a couple town halls, and then you guys vote on that budget if there's no changes from the town hall August 29th.
So these board meetings will be held on July the 10th and the 11th?
Yes, 7 o'clock here in this room. And then again, the managers, if anybody, I encourage everybody to look at the Finance Committee. It will be done the same way. The managers will present their case.
In the dance barn.
Yep, they'll present their case to you guys, and whatever questions you have, if you want them, it would be nice if we could have them prior, so that we could have a better idea of what some of the questions might be. As they're presenting, if there are questions, most definitely please bring them up to them on the floor at that time. But if there's anything you have in your mind, or as you go through this, please feel free to reach out to myself, Jennifer, or Carol, and we will answer as much as we can prior to going into the presentations.
Madam President, Carol had her hand up.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Except I will say, yeah, please, if you have the time, look at the actual meeting that we had last week as well, because we had a good, solid discussion, I felt, because it was the follow-up meeting after we had all the presentations, and we discussed various aspects of it. It will help you to understand some of the reasoning that we had behind the recommendations that we made, as well as the final approval. The other thing, I guess I'm going to mention too, is in the cover letter, there are some changes that have been made in the budget based on staff's recommendations, and that was over or after an approval by the Finance Committee, and I'm quite sure the Finance Committee would feel comfortable with those changes. But this is, at this point, in the board's hands to make the recommendations based on what is in this budget. This is the one that has has all the changes that the Finance Committee had, as well as some additional ones that staff initiated, some actual reductions in expenses, so.
Madam Paula?
Just another clarification from what you just said. After these, there are 2 town halls for the community to come, and we can make changes after that as well.
Yes.
Take those into consideration and have another conversation.
Yeah,
Before we present a final to the board.
Exactly. Once we have the town halls, once we go through that process, if the board feels strongly enough from what the community is saying, we can still make adjustments at that point. That's why we're trying to have them, the end of this month, first part of the next month, so that we can, end of July, July through the first part of August, because with the vote being the 29th, we want to be able to have everybody's input, so in case there is anything that you guys feel after the town hall is deemed to be, needs to be changed, we will make those changes, and then that will be the vote that you will be voting on.
Thanks.
Which is a good leading question, because I think Eric has a suggestion.
Am I next, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. So speaking about town halls, I think now would be a good time to discuss when we're going to have town halls. And I'm looking at the calendar for the AGM, and we need to have the town halls before the board votes, of course. And I'm looking at the month of August, because we're not going to be presented with any of this as a board until July. And we'll have some time to digest it. August 15th, Thursday, in the evening, and August 18th, Sunday, in the early afternoon, are my first offers here.
Suggestions?
Well, before you get into suggestions, if I remember correctly, when we talked about having the special budget meeting on the 10th and 11th of July, that community input would not be allowed at those 2 meetings. Hence, that's the need for having, as quickly as possible, the town halls. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, so there will be no member input. It'll be done the same way finance was done, with the managers presenting to the board. Board will be asking questions at that point. Then the town halls will be an open forum for all residents to have their concerns to the board, as well as to the management staff. They'll be here as well. This is everybody's budget, so we're going to be as transparent and upfront as we can. So the only thing, Eric, I would say, you guys have it the 10th and 11th. You'll have it for 2 weeks. You guys should be very, very, very well versed in this budget, and there should be no reason it should not be. I don't think you wait as long as you are. I think we get it going right away, get it out there, gives everybody time to get anything changed that needs to be changed and updated, so that everybody can fully see what's going to happen on August 29th.
Well,
I think the longer we give the community a chance to review it and see it after we've torn it apart with you guys, I think is only beneficial to the board and to the community.
So you're suggesting we move it up earlier in August?
I would say probably the last week of July, maybe the first week of August at the absolute latest.
Okay, so I have a suggestion for that. At the end of July, in fact, we could, July 27th, I'm sorry, 28th, the Sunday,
And the 31st,
and,
or the 7th of August on a, wait, that would be a board meeting, the 7th of August?
no, the 8th of August is a board meeting.
8th of August, okay.
And so I
The
was.
first of August would be,
The 1st of August would be an open date. That would
And
be that Thursday.
that was the next weekday that seemed to make sense, was the first,
Okay,
Thursday the 1st.
Is that Thursday?
Eric, what day is that? Is that Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday.
So Sunday, the 28th of July, early afternoon.
And what time?
usually about 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is when we run those, yeah.
And that would be here in the barn, that would give time for people to come here after church. In fact, they wouldn't even have to disassemble the seating.
No, probably
So,
not.
yeah. And then on a Thursday in the evening, the 1st of August,
At what
Our
time?
usual 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Again, in the dance barn.
Yes.
Is that?
7 o'clock?
Do we need a motion for that, Madam President?
I don't know if we need a motion for that.
Any issue, Carol?
I just want to make a comment, just so that if we follow the similar structure as what we did for the finance meeting, we met and went through the situation with managers, and then we met the next week afterwards to discuss what we had learned. In other words, it gave us time to kind of walk through it. Now, if we have the managers come to the 10th and 11th, July 10th and 11th, we can then have a discussion the following week if you wish. We don't have a board meeting planned that day, or we could wait until the 25th, which is our typical board meeting, and have a budget discussion then. It depends on what the board wishes. I just wanted to make sure that you understand that that's going to be probably our process, and it would help for us to have that conversation, I think, to have a good understanding of where we are and where we all fit into this before we actually start the town halls.
Madam President, Larry?
Yeah, I have a question, Carol, on that. If the board is going to be thoroughly discussing this with staff on the 10th and 11th, what is left to discuss prior to a town hall?
That's a really good question, and I'll explain to you that when we, as the Finance Committee, sat through all of the manager questions, we had quite a few questions of the managers, and we listened to all they had to say. But there wasn't dialogue between Finance Committee members as to the validity or the appropriateness of each individual expense at that time, or whatever we decided. So it gave us a week to think about all that we had heard. And I'll give you one example. Bruce suggested he wanted a total of 3 full-time employees. And the Finance Committee didn't get to talk about that the night that it was presented. We felt we should think about it and determine what was the impact of that, and was that the thing to go. The way we ended up at the Finance Committee meeting the following week was that we recommended just 1 FTE for Bruce for safety reasons, because there's one right now who's working by himself and a lot of things can't be done. But that the other 2 we'd hold off on that. Now, the board can make a different decision about that, but that was our recommendation in trying to keep it.
I guess
down.
my question is based on, oh goodness, it's raining.
It's raining, yes.
My question is based on the fact that the Finance Committee, remind me if I'm wrong, only had the 1 meeting?
No, we had 2.
We had 2.
You had a 2-night
We had
meeting.
2
And
meetings
then
with
you had a
managers,
follow-up.
and then we had a follow-up meeting, and I do believe that that's probably a good idea for us to battle through that. And it doesn't mean that your decision that needs to be final. We can still go through the town halls, but I think we should all understand what our thought process is regarding the finances and make sure we understand everything, we have all our questions answered before we have the town halls so that we can be more effective in the town halls.
Okay, thank you.
You
That
may have to
explains.
speak up.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Finally rain.
yes, over the thunder.
Madam President Paula.
I just want to second that. I found that having that week in between and then coming back and really having time to process the information, to look back over the notes. We were there the first night for 3.5 hours and the second night for about 3. It was an incredible amount of information to take in. It's really important, and having the time to process and really think about what was said, go back over the notes was so valuable. I would really suggest that, I would like that process again.
Yeah, it's kind of like the first 2 meetings were education, and the last one was negotiation, decision, et cetera.
Okay, just a question then on that. Is it intended that the 10th and 11th go until completed? So we're not locked in on a 2-hour or 2.5 hour?
Well, the way we broke it out for finances, we had a very set agenda. After the first night, the only thing we did not get into was surf, because we had gone so long. And a lot of it was new to the finance committee. They didn't get as much heads up notice as you guys are getting. So I would assume that you guys have a little bit more time, and most of you had sat through those meetings. You would be a little bit more prepared and be ready to go, as well as my team. This is the first time they've ever done something like that, so it was a learning curve for everybody. So I would have to say we'll do the exact same way with a very set agenda and try to get it done in 2 nights. There's no reason that we can't get that done because we did it for the finance committee, and I would assume that the board would be a little bit more prepared and be ready to go with some harder questions, or just sit back and watch the finance committee and see what you might want to do, might not want to do.
Okay, we have Carol, Eric, and Mike.
I just was going to say I did not feel rushed. I think that we were pretty tired at the end of the first night. The second night went a little faster because we understood the process better.
Right.
And we had already had a comfort level with some of the discussion. So I think we can get it done easily in 2 nights without, we were very tired by the end of the first night, but I think the second night we felt a lot more like we had managed it all pretty well, and we were ready to start cogitating.
Yeah,
We weren't ready to make decisions yet, but we had enough information, and I think we were ready to move forward and have discussion.
Yeah, the first night was a little long. I will say that, but it was, again, it's a good process. I mean, everything is out there. There's nothing that's not out there for the entire community to see. I mean, it was all laid right out in black and white.
Madam President, Eric.
So let me make sure I understand this process correctly with respect to the calendar. The 10th and 11th of July, Wednesday and Thursday, board being presented with things. And then a month and a half later, we actually, as a board, vote on the budget, the final vote. Between those two is a month and a half, and in there, halfway through is a couple of town halls where we get feedback from membership. And is there another meeting that we need to have as a board about the budget and so would that be before the 2 town halls or after?
Well, you would have, the way it was with finance, it happened to work out that way, where we did the 2 presentations and we happened to have a finance meeting the following week where we addressed all the changes and concerns and whatever needed to be changed to the budget you have in front of you. I believe Carol was thinking the same way, is that after the 10th and 11th, we could sit down and address any questions or concerns that you have of the presentation prior to the town hall, do the town halls, and then if there's any changes that need to be made from the board and town hall, we would make all the changes at that point, and then that would be the budget that the community and everybody would be voting on.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is because we have the 10th and 11th, which I understand, and we've talked about the 28th being the first town hall. The 25th, the Thursday, is our normal board meeting, but that's going to be a pretty full meeting. We have the whole AGM agenda measures, the ballot explanations reviewed, et cetera. That, I mean, really, that's going to be our big board meeting for the month, because the previous board meeting is going to be a finance presentation.
We could, I'm looking at August 8th, which is the next board meeting. We could address any issues or changes that the board and after the town hall is deemed fit, and then we would have the budget out to them, to the residents by the 12th. And that gives them, what, let's see,
2 weeks.
2 weeks to really look at it, and then we have the budget vote on the 29th.
Okay, that was the nature of my question about the process of, do we need another board meeting to talk about that budget before the town halls? Because what you just proposed was after both town halls.
No?
No.
Yes?
Yes,
Yes, it
August
is. August 8th is after, because we're talking about the July 28th and Thursday, the
August
1st of
1st.
August,
Right.
being the town halls.
Eric, didn't you have a date prior to the 25th that you were talking about earlier, as far as, do we want to talk about the budget on such and such a date, or wait until the 25th?
No, I don't believe that I said anything like that.
It should, I feel it should be all one big discussion after the board has looked at it in any town halls.
And I would agree that we should have our next discussion after the town halls. So we have the
Right.
input from staff, we have input from town halls, and the board discusses it.
Right. And that would
At
be
least-
that would be the final presentation, that, the 8th would be the final presentation. All things get hashed out and addressed and changed at that point, so that it can go out to the community before your 29th vote, and that gives them almost 2 weeks to look at it.
I think that's a prudent way to.
I don't know, I think that what we need to present at the town hall is what the board has agreed on. And in order to do that, we have got to make that decision on either the 18th or the 25th. And maybe we want just a special board meeting on the 18th to review any changes we want to make to the budget.
But what the board has agreed on doesn't happen until August 29th.
Well,
I
that's
know
the
it-
vote.
Maybe
Final
on-
decision.
Final decision is 29th,
Okay,
but
so the work in
Right,
progress.
here's what
Working.
we're looking at right now. Now, and present that to the members, and that's where they start to give their input. And then we look at the 29th and say, all right, what has changed from our original decision?
So if I may, you're saying that we would have a special meeting on the 10th and a normal meeting on the 11th? Both of those
No,
are
a
budget.
special meeting on the 18th, we'll have yeah.
I know, but first we have the 10 and 11 for budget, then we have the 18th for
Right,
more
which is for the
budget,
board to,
then the 25th, then the
Whether-
28th, then the 1st.
Yes.
Okay,
Welcome to budget season.
I like that.
Is there any agreement on that?
If you want us to raise our hand, then you'll have.
Do you want to vote, or are we just agreeing?
I like
I'm
the
not sure we
idea.
need to vote on any of this.
no, I
Is
think
there
it should.
any,
This is just
Anybody who's opposed?
procedural.
Seeing none, let's,
So let's run them down again.
Please, could we just
Yeah.
make
yeah,
sure we
the,
know what
the
each one
18th
is?
is a special board meeting for
Start on
discussion
the
of the
10th.
budget.
Start on the 10th.
Okay, July 10th and 11th will be board meetings here with presentations from management. The next week, the 18th, is going to be a special board meeting to talk about, as a
Changes,
board,
changes.
what,
Any recommended changes
change.
we have?
the 25th, which is the next Thursday, will be our normal board meeting, but we have a pretty full agenda already for that, because that's a lot of the ballot stuff. Then next Thursday, the 1st,
No,
Nope.
28th.
I'm sorry, the
28th.
28th.
Right.
The 28th of July, the next Sunday, will be a town hall here, early afternoon. The coming Thursday after that, the 1st, will also be a town hall in the evening. The very next Thursday, the 8th, will be a regular board meeting, but it's going to be, a lot of it will be legal review of the AGM draft
Yeah.
agenda and proposals. The,
Next board meeting is the 29th.
and then, yes, the next board meeting is the 29th. Between then, we have an audit presentation on the 14th, Wednesday the 14th of August.
Who stuck that in there?
What presentation?
Newman and Associates audit presentation.
You also
That's
have
the
the
20
But that's a finance committee
Committee of
thing.
Sudden Valley on the 10th.
Divide of Sudden Valley is also.
Why isn't the 22nd the next morning?
Yeah, second.
Oh, because last meeting, we decided to move that meeting to the 29th because the 29th was the prudent day for the board to make the decision on the budget.
If it's a hard one.
Otherwise,
wanna
it
make
could
it
be
too
too
soon.
early.
So we're moving it from the 22nd.
Well, based on what you just said, if the 29th, we have to make a decision, and the 15th, or no, the 8th is a board meeting, I presume to discuss these budgetary matters. You also mentioned the need to discuss AGM stuff, or was that in July?
That's
No.
on the 25th.
Of July?
Let me clarify. The 25th of July, the things that we are going to have to look at are the AGM agenda, the measures ballot, and the explanations reviewed. And then on the 8th of August is the legal review of the AGM draft proofs, and the AGM draft proofs finalized.
So that would leave essentially no time to discuss anything that came out of the town halls.
Correct.
And that's why we were.
So all of that would be postponed till the 29th. So we'd have to discuss what came out of the town halls and vote on the final budget. That may well be problematic. It depends on what comes out of the town halls, of course.
And President Carroll and Whitney.
I think I think that's a good point. It may depend a lot on what comes out of the town halls. If we are finding there are major issues that we need to deal with, we do have an extra week in there that we could potentially meet again. I know every week it's getting to be a lot, but we need to do this right. But at this point, I don't see a reason to schedule another meeting on the 15th. Well, the audit presentation's on the 14th, but that's actually finance, for the finance committee meeting. But the 15th or the 22nd, I don't see a reason unless we find that there's some major issue that comes up that we need to deal with. So I don't think at this point we should schedule anything else. I think I felt from the finance committee fairly comfortable that we had plenty of time to discuss the most important things based on, and we'll have plenty of time to think about it.
I'm just suggesting that we, in our minds, keep it open in case it's needed.
I agree.
July will be very busy.
And August.
Madam
Well,
President,
and August certainly, but July for sure.
Madam President Whitney.
All right, so we have a plan?
Whitney,
I think Carol addressed what I was thinking. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay. All right, moving down to the May finance statement.
Please.
Jennifer gave me a quick overview of what's going on. Coming out of May, we are $759,160 positive net operating assets. That is right off the front page of the balance sheet.
Page
140.
140.
142.
140, okay. You also will see on there, there is a new capital lease, that's the gym equipment. That is 4.62 interest for 120 months. And we also have, excuse me, that's a surf loan. And then it's 5.47 interest for the gym equipment. One of the plans is if we have positive cash flow at the end of the year, we will pay off that, the equipment lease, just terminate that altogether. On the next page, you see where we are 96.5% on collections for the year right now, so that is a good thing. Projecting out for the rest of the year, golf is to, if everything goes the way it is, Mother Nature cooperating, basically $60,000 better than budget. 59,950. So that's the projection for right now.
I got a comment.
I was waiting.
That is incredible. If we have that much, that's a positive cash flow for the first time in, what, at least 15 years.
They're looking, right now, the projection is 845,000 in revenue.
Awesome.
So that's if everything holds true and everything works out. So
Understood, but that's
it's a positive outlook, yes.
Listen, if we make even, that'll be the first time in 15 years, thereabouts. Is it about right?
I'm good, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's 15 years.
I believe it was. At least maybe.
Some of the other things, on the next page, they're project right now on SURF, if all projects A are approved, we will have 141,649 positive still, and with the roads, we will be 214,609. Also, the next page is flip over, you're getting into all of the departmental stuff. They are broken out. If you have any questions with this, you're more than welcome to ask Jennifer some of this. But one of the other things that I was looking at, if you go back to the second page, we are 109,863 better than budget coming through May, positive. So they are, most of that is collections, but it's also golf is in that, as well as managing some of the expenses. So that is where we stand right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask Jennifer. I just was given a high level of what was out there. You know, the big things are, you know, the balance sheet is positive as well as collections are up. So they are the big items.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, let's move down. Committee reports and voting is necessary. I suggest that we accept the reports as they have been published. And for the committees, yes?
Yes. Actually, this is for a couple of the committees, unless you want to do it differently. Document review.
I have a list here of the new members.
That's a
different one, okay.
That's a different issue.
Okay.
Couple of things. Document review, just to give you an update, we're busting through potential bylaw amendments. We've made extremely good progress. We've got another meeting this Monday. I should be able to present our findings at the next board meeting.
That would be a good thing to see where we are as far as measures that we want to put on.
Proposed measures. And there will be several. It is very inadvisable to do one big measure. Unexpected things can happen during a meeting if that happens. The other thing regards emergency preparedness, unless somebody else wants to say something. I just wanted to note that the county announced that they've transferred a staff member into a new position to deal with wildfire suppression activities. And I think emergency preparedness, both long-range planning and current, should be aware of that. Obviously, this is just beginning. But the county is taking a look at stopping fires before they happen.
Where's that announcement?
It was made publicly during the policy group meeting. I haven't seen a written announcement on that. They were just saying, oh, somebody isn't in this job anymore because they've been transferred to this new job.
Is it a person who's named to that position?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. There are several nominations here for new committee members. I'd like to do, first of all, just announce that Lee Langdon has been appointed to the Nominations and Elections Committee, and that is, since NNE does control their own membership, this is just an announcement for you. There are 3 other committees, that let's do these together. Communication, would like to bring on Christine Hurst, and I'm assuming that all of these 3 have been vetted and they're, okay. Emergency Preparedness would like to bring on Ann Merchant, and Parks, Trails, and Recreation, Elizabeth Lorenz. Shall we approve those back?
So moved.
Yes. Okay.
Second.
All right. So they have been approved for those committees.
So the minutes of the meetings are approved as submitted?
Yeah.
As submitted.
Minutes and numbers, all good to go. And let's move quickly through continuing business, nothing. New business, nothing. Property owner comments. Come on up.
Madam Chairman, or President-elect President, Madam President, Sam Shahan, 1 Whistling Swan. I have a question concerning the maintenance backlog numbers, quite a few thousand. How were the hours determined? Is that by estimate of some work needed? And what are the types of work that is? And what is the rate for the maintenance person, staff, whatever, by the hour to do that work? What does it cost for that person, including wages, benefits, taxes, whatever it may be? But, you know, kind of like to get a scope of the whole number of that and how the work was determined to be that much.
Okay, thank you for the question. Anything else? Nothing? Okay. Okay, quick review is as far as determining the number of hours, we do have a maintenance program now in which we list all of the different tasks that are required, along with the amount of time that it takes to do them. And this is where that number comes from. It's actual analysis of how much time it takes to do every one of the maintenance tasks that we do around here. You can see that on the May 29th Finance Committee packet. The agenda packet does have a full list of all of the different maintenance tasks, and so that's where you can determine that. As far as a number for salaries go, we basically pay close to minimum wage for all of our maintenance workers. Okay. Board member comments? Eric.
I want to emphasize to the community that we're getting a lot of road work happening right quick. And so if you're in the area where we're going to have in the newspaper a map of the affected areas for the resurfacing and different road work. And so if you are in those zones, please get your cars well off the roads, because there's going to have to be sweeping that's done. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening. And I think that we're going to have a little more detail about things that people should do with respect to this map. But at any rate, please look at the map. If you're on a road that's going to get resurfaced or work done, please know the general dates that it's going to happen, and those are going to be published. And please get your cars out of the way.
Okay, Joe, how are we going to be notifying people?
Once I get Intermountain in here, they will give me their start date and what roads they will be on. They also will be using Gate 5 overflow for their yards, their laydown yards. So once they get here, a lot of it, they said, when I walked the property with them, they said it'll take 6 days. So
That's for the entire job.
the entire job, they said 6 days if Mother Nature cooperates with them. So
Unless it rains like this.
unless it rains like this, and they'll have to shut down, but they did say 6 days is the process. When they start, it'll be, one of the things they did say was 48 hours ahead of time, they will tag everybody's doors to let them know that they will be coming in that area tomorrow, and you need to get
In
out
other
of the
words,
way.
if you will be impacted, you will find a notice
You will-
on
yes.
your door.
Yep, and as well as, once I get the start date and what gate they're gonna roll in first, that will go out, just like we did for the snow, where we were gonna be every night, where you're gonna be first thing in the morning, and where they'll be at the end of the night, so that everybody knows ahead of time that they're coming into that area. But they will have a 48-hour hang tag on the door as well.
Okay. Andrew?
Separate board member comment, if we're done with that
Oh,
conversation.
yeah, no,
Mike, Tom.
Okay, additional comments, right?
Yeah, so I think, so there's been more than a handful, I think, of community members who have reached out to the board as a whole, stating their concerns with any dues increases. And for those individuals who have reached out directly to the board, explaining the reasons why they are suggesting we don't, has there been any follow-up with those individuals? And if not, I'd like to request either our chair or Joe reach out to them individually and let them know the process that we've just described tonight, or outlined tonight, with how they can attend the town halls and the dates, and just give them a little bit more direction since they've reached out to us. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
I'd support that if it were a motion.
Well, would you support if it weren't a motion?
Excuse me?
You would support that process, right?
Sending it out to the community members, specifically those who
Okay.
sent the board their comments.
To the community members who have sent emails with their opinions, I have acknowledged everyone that I've received.
No, understood.
And if you believe that I should be sending a little bit further description of the process,
Yes, ma'am.
so that they know. Okay,
Agreeing with Andrew.
I will do that.
Now, we have sent out postcards about the process. We have published the process in the views. The process hasn't changed.
No, it hasn't, but if I were to just type up a little description, and as each one, as the people send emails, instead of just saying thank you, just say, here's the process.
Sure.
So that let's be redundant.
Yeah, and we can use the same,
Yes.
Template, just to,
I think that's very important, given some of the misinformation that is out there, that the more that we can reinforce what the actual process is, that it's a working draft, that there's input available, I think the more that we can message that and tell that story, the better that we are, because there is an incredible amount of misinformation out there.
we do have new information about the process. I want to retract what I just said. The process hasn't changed since it started a few months ago. It actually has.
There are some new
Because
dates.
we have some new dates as of tonight.
Yeah, right, you're right. Okay.
So my front page story.
Microphone?
My front page story in the views is a summary of that May 29th Finance Committee meeting, and I'm going to add a box with the dates that you guys ran through to the front page, if that's helpful.
Very.
Yeah, it's just a summary of the discussion and kind of how it came about, but yeah, that
Okay.
Thanks.
When do we print?
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
bright and early.
we want to get it out ahead of the 4th.
You're going to run home and type it up and you're printing tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Shouldn't we send an e-blast out? Shouldn't we send an e-blast out on those dates as well?
That's a good idea, yeah.
Very
will
good.
be taken care of.
Excellent.
And then
Now-
I will have it in writing so I can use it also. Good idea, all right. Yes, sir.
Move to adjourn, please.
So moved. Who's second? And it's 8:28.